Today I'm here to give you the reality of working in a SOC as a Tier 1 security analyst. There are some facts that I can share from my personal work experience as well as some of the unique intricacies that the SOC environment offers, in which you should be aware of before jumping right in. Some of what I'm going to share can apply to all workplaces, however, there are some unique to the SOC. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Number 1. Teammates. Typically in a SOC, there are multiple shifts at different times because a SOC usually operates as a 24/7 basis. On each shift, there are typically 1 or 2 analysts who will be on shift with you. Now, having a bad teammate sucks regardless of what job you're doing, but in a SOC where your team is responsible for managing a queue, having a lazy teammate will greatly increase the chance of your shift falling behind, meaning missing your SLAs, having terrible escalations, and worst of it all, cross-contamination. But if you do end up having one of these teammates, the one thing I want you to focus on is shift your mindset and think of it as you're getting more experience out of the job. Grind it out, take as many tickets as you can, and constantly learn. Number 2. Pay. Yes, cybersecurity can lead to a high-paying job down the line, but the reality is, as a Tier 1 cybersecurity SOC analyst, you'll likely won't be making as much money as you think you would, as it is an entry-level position. Just keep in mind it's how you get your foot in the door and gain on-the-job experience, which will help you eventually lead to bigger and better things down the line. Usually what you get paid compared to the amount of work and stress you'll be under won't seem enough. Number 3, shifts. This will be different depending on who you speak to, but shifts are not for everyone. Since a SOC needs to be operating on a 24/7, 365 basis, the analysts do tend to take turns working different shifts. I've worked many different shifts before, but the most popular one that I've seen has 3 different shifts in a day. So you have your morning, afternoon, and overnight shift, which usually ranges from 8 to 10 hours a shift. Now there are pros and cons to each shift. For example, I've seen a lot of analysts cater more towards the overnight shift because they think that it's less work during the night. However, as we all know, threat actors love to work when everybody is sleeping. But I've also seen analysts hate the night shift because it messes with their sleep schedule, and I am one of them. In addition, because the SOC is 24/7, 365, that means analysts will need to work during the holidays as well. So that means you can say goodbye to things like birthdays, Christmas, weddings, or your other important life events. But there is one good thing about working in a shift environment. It is unlike a normal desk job where you might have to take work home or work overtime. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times where a SOC is required for you to work overtime, but after the shift is done, you're done. You don't have to think about work, you don't have to think about what's in the queue, but when you come back, you have to look at all of the process that may have changed during the time you were off, because that does happen quite often. But still, once you're off, you're off. That's what I enjoy about shift. Number 4, stress. Working in a SOC can be very stressful. The most obvious reason is because of the amount of work you have. If you work in an MSSP environment where they have a bunch of clients but not enough analysts, it could feel like a never-ending cycle of alerts. As a result, you as an analyst is likely pressured to escalate the ticket as quickly as possible, and in return, your quality actually suffers. Another big factor that I've noticed that causes stress in the SOC is a lack of process and documentation, as well as the absence of training. If an analyst does not know the basic process on how to escalate a ticket, for example, and they are looking for documentation, as well as SLA is running out of time, you can imagine how much stress that analyst can be under, which would eventually cause them to panic and likely make a mistake. Typically in a SOC environment, if a high severity alert lands in your queue, you'll likely have to call the client to let them know that, hey, you're investigating XYZ. These higher priority tickets generally have a lower SLA threshold, making the analyst extremely nervous, especially when multiple high severity alerts pop into your queue. And believe me when I say this, I've seen analysts go out of their way to not touch any high severity tickets simply because they are either A, scared to talk to the client, or just worried that they'll miss a step in the process simply because of the lack of documentation. As a result, high priority tickets miss SLA, management gets involved, the SOC gets all the blame. Another stressful thing about the SOC is that you never know when the next ticket is going to come in, especially a high priority ticket. When I was working in a SOC, I always felt that I had to be in front of the computer monitoring the queue. Now, I get it, that is the job responsibility of a SOC, but it also made me feel that I can't get up and go to the washroom. Because if I come back, there might be 6 high priority tickets with 2-minute SLA remaining. There will be alerts that you simply don't know how to action because you've never been exposed to it, or there's just not enough documentation relating to that alert. I've seen this happen where the analysts will then stick to what they know best and only do what they know. Working in a SOC environment is a stressful job, but the rewards are great. A SOC is an excellent place to learn on the job and apply theory to practice. It is also a great place to network because being in a SOC, you're surrounded with like-minded individuals and you never know. The analyst next to you might land an excellent job and eventually refer you down the line depending on your relationship. Number 5, managers and clients. If you have a terrible manager or a client that has unrealistic expectations, your life in the SOC will be extremely miserable. Having a terrible manager is bad for any job. But in a SOC where the environment is extremely fast-paced and process-driven, there can be so many uncertainties. I've been in a SOC where a process will change every day or every week. If you have a manager who is not understanding, it can really cause you stress and lead you to burnout quickly. Similarly with clients, a lot of them don't actually understand what SOC analysts do. Now, there are some that are great in understanding, but you'll always have that one client who just expects way too much out of a tier 1 SOC analyst. For example, the client might want a full forensic investigation to be done by the SOC Tier 1 analyst. A Tier 1 SOC analyst ain't gonna have time to do a full forensic investigation. Also, that might be above their skill level. And a full forensic investigation typically is billable hours, by the way. In addition, the SOC only has visibility into the logs that the client has agreed to ingest. When an analyst triages an alert, they will use everything in their power to identify and gather as much logs as they can. However, a client may be asking for additional information, which we don't have, because the client did not ingest everything that we need. This type of client is extremely popular for those that only sign up for an MSSP simply for a compliance checkmark. So those are the hidden realities of working in a SOC environment. Now, don't let this scare you. The purpose of this video was to prepare you for the SOC, not discourage you. Yes, it can be extremely stressful working in a SOC environment. However, it is a great environment to network in and put theory into practice. In the SOC, some of your teammates may become lifelong friends and eventually refer you into a role that you're interested down the line. The important thing I want you to know is set realistic expectations. Otherwise, you will burn out very quickly. If you are someone trying to get started in cybersecurity, you don't have to do this alone. I want to help you with that journey, which is why I created a site called MyDFIR.com, which you can sign up for free mentorship, no strings attached. And this is where I'll be posting books I recommend, cybersecurity resources, and blog posts. That is it for the video. If you found it informative, let me know by hitting that like button and subscribe if you want to.